Fair use. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing.
Before we start the video, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I appreciate all the support I received from you. And as always, all the information in my videos is rumors taken from the internet or the street. I'm not saying the information is fact.
Pick your mans up.
And just because people used to come through shooting at us every day. And this block, words can't even explain, man. Can't even explain.
Yeah, man. Little School Valley, 05 way on money. Young money, man. They in the building.
600 boy, LA, man. LA Capone, man. Get it to him, man. OC2 boys, man. Team
Number 9, man. Number 9 shooter, you hear me?
Hey, bitch, little bitch. Yeah. Fuck is wrong with you? Hey, I am Brick Squad. Brick Squad, boy. Fuck is you talking about, boy?
You have to be willing to die or go to jail for 100 years if that's the lane that you're stepping in. You have to understand that whether you 15, 16, you got to think like a man. You know what I'm saying?
So don't be in it. Oh, you're not? Why does everybody say you're only 16 years old?
They say what they want to say.
How old are you?
300.
The real history of Tyquan world. This is the true story of Tyquan world, how it really began. The role K.I., also known as Jakira Barnes, the infamous female gangster, played in its formation, and the dynamic between K.I. and Tyquan. I'll also explore why, if K.I. were still alive today, she would likely have been the leader of the gang. We begin with the story of Tyquan Taylor, the young teen whose name would later inspire the formation of Tyquan world. Tyquan was a member of Jaro City and was tragically killed on June 24, 2012, during the summer of that year. He shared a close bond with K.I., who had taken him under her wing, teaching him the ways of the streets, things no child, or even adult, should ever have to learn. Tyquan was like a little brother to K.I., a sentiment echoed by her own mother after K.I.'s death. Tyquan was taught by K.I. to target older guys when robbing. The strategy was calculated. Older members were often disconnected from the younger generation and, more importantly, less likely to retaliate. Many of them had already stepped away from street life, putting down guns and distancing themselves from violence. For the most part, the approach worked. Alongside K.I., Tyquan robbed several people, including individuals from sets they were actually on good terms with. These robberies, combined with Tyquan's growing presence among STL's most feared shooters, quickly elevated his name. Word about him spread not only across GD sets but also to their main rivals, O-Block and 600. Tyquan was making a name for himself, but with that reputation came danger. He became a major target. It didn't take long for someone to disregard his age and try to take him out. That moment came in early 2012, when Tyquan was shot at for the first time, by none other than King Von. Just weeks before, Von had been the target of a shooting by K.I. and Wooski on King Drive. He managed to escape unharmed, but the incident lit a fire. From that point on, Von had a personal score to settle. He was out to kill K.I. for OD and Sheroid, and Wooski for Reezy and Patoon. He also had beef with FBG Buddha, Gakir's close friend, partly for OD, but also allegedly because Buddha had beaten him up back in 2010. A few weeks after Von's brush with K.I. and Wooski, he and Scud from O Block were spotted walking through EBT's block, hunting for a target. They saw Tyquan, K.I., and Wooski across the street and opened fire. Miraculously, no one was hit, and all three managed to escape through a nearby alley. As previously mentioned, on June 24, 2012, 13-year-old Tyquan Tyler was shot and killed outside a party near the 6200 block of South Rhodes Avenue, deep in Jaro City territory. Tyquan had been attending the party with his 19-year-old sister when a fight broke out around 1:20 a.m. The siblings fled the scene, first onto the street and then into a nearby alley. Two older members of Jaro City, Wayne and Nate, followed them. They opened fire, striking Tyquan once in the chest. He collapsed in the alley, and by the time paramedics arrived, he was already dead. Police initially reported that neither Tyquan nor his sister had any gang affiliation. However, it's widely known on the streets that Tyquan was affiliated with the very same gang as his killers, Jaro City. His murder was no random act. It was a targeted hit. Tyquan was best friends with Jakira Barnes, also known as KIA, feared female shooter from STL/EBT. Their connection came through FBG Buddha, who originally hailed from Jaro but was closely tied to both Tyquan and KI. The trio formed a tight bond around mid-2011, shortly after the death of OD from Wick City. Tyquan officially jumped off the porch in early 2012. While he hadn't yet shot any rivals, he quickly gained a reputation for his frequent robberies. Alongside KI and Buddha, he went on robbing sprees nearly every other week. Their targets included members of Dipset 650, E-Block, and even fellow Jaro City members, highlighting just how unpredictable and fearless they had become. About a month and a half before Tyquan's death, he made a critical mistake. He robbed Nate, an older and well-respected member of Jaro City. At the time, Tyquan didn't realize that Nate wasn't just another easy target. He wasn't a stain or a lick, he was a seasoned and active shooter. Nate wasn't the kind of guy you could rob without consequences. Despite his age, Nate was deeply tied into the street life and couldn't tolerate being disrespected by someone younger, even if that person was from his own set. Ki knew this and tried to smooth things over. She managed to talk things out between the two, convincing Nate that Tyquan simply didn't know better, that he was just a kid. For a couple of weeks, the tension seemed to cool off. It looked like peace had been restored. But the calm didn't last. Just weeks later, Nate linked up with Wayne, another Jaro City member, and the two plotted Tyquan's murder. They followed through on that plan and ultimately got locked up for the killing. In the aftermath of Tyquan's death, Tyquan World was formed. At first, it wasn't meant to be a separate set, it was just another nickname for Jaro City, much like 2-2 Gang or Hottie World. The creation of Tyquan World as its own identity was never the original intent. In fact, even close allies of Tyquan, like Ki and Lil Bubba, now a well-known member, were initially against the idea. Their resistance came from the fact that many of the people pushing the Tyquan World name in mid-2013 didn't personally know Tyquan. To Ki and others, that felt wrong, like his name was being used by outsiders who didn't fully understand who he was. Tyquan's death also left deep scars. Ki grew bitter toward Jaro City. While many others swept the incident under the rug or chose not to blame Jaro as a whole, K.I. held that pain close. Dutchie also shared that bitterness early on but eventually moved past it over time. What further damaged the relationship between K.I. and Jaro City was the fact that Jaro appeared to co-sign the creation of Tyquan World. Ironically, the majority of early Tyquan World members came from Jaro City, with only a handful from STL, among them, K.I.'s own brother, who had been just as close to Tyquan as she was. Another was Lucky, who initially claimed Tyquan World but eventually distanced himself and went back to mainly repping STL. What many people don't realize is that, in the early days, about half of Tyquan World was viewed as a group of Goofy's young kids seen as chasing clout off Tyquan's name rather than genuinely repping his legacy. This perception caused even more tension, especially for those who had been truly close to Tyquan. But that narrative started to shift, as shorties like Lil Bubba, DB, Twan, D-Money, LC, and others began putting in real work in the streets, and eventually catching bodies. Tyquan World evolved from just a name into its own recognized set. Truth be told, if K.I. had still been alive today, she probably would have claimed Tyquan World herself. The reason being, she was already on the verge of taking a page out of 600's D-Thang's playbook and forming her own crew, with herself as the clear leader. It's likely that Tyquan World would have been that crew. As I just mentioned, a few months before K.I.'s death, younger members from both Jaro City and STL/EBT began claiming Tyquan World. Around that same time, the set also lost their first member, a moment that would mark a turning point in the streets. I'm talking about the murder that led to D-Rose being sentenced to life in prison, the killing of Big V from Tyquan World. This tragedy would change the young gang forever. What many don't know is that several young members that would later become the heart of Tyquan World were present when Big V was shot and killed. According to the Chicago Police Department, Wenzel Richardson, 14 years old, better known as Big V, was walking with a group of 3 to 5 teens in the 6100 block of South Vernon Avenue around 8:20 p.m. on February 12, 2014. He had just come from a local corner store when a white van pulled up beside them. Without warning, gunshots rang out from inside the vehicle. Big V was shot in the head and died on the scene. The people rumored to have been in the van that night were D-Rose, C-Day, and Lil Boo from 600, along with Lil Loss from Front Street. It's believed that D-Rose and Lil Loss were the ones who fired the shots. A key witness in the case was D-Money, just 13 years old at the time, now dead. He cooperated with authorities and claimed it was D-Rose who pulled the trigger. He said he recognized him from social media and Chief Keef music videos. Walking alongside Big V the night were TB, D-Money, Mook, C, and White Mike, all associated with Tyquan World. The bullet that killed Big V struck him in front of all of them. D-Money and the others managed to escape as the van sped off. This moment not only shook the new gang and its young members to its core but pushed several of its members, especially DB, deeper into the streets. The impact of Big V's murder would echo through the set for years to come. At that time, Tyquan World still wasn't fully in motion, not the way we know it today. Don't get me wrong, there were plenty of people claiming Tyquan World, but it hadn't yet become its own established set. In the beginning, it was very mixed. Most of the early members were still claiming both Jaro City and Tyquan World, or STL/EBT and Tyquan World at the same time. It wasn't a separate, unified structure like it is now. Back then, TW lacked the organization and identity that it would later grow into. Almost exactly 2 months after the murder of Wenzel Richardson, the next major killing took place, the murder of the person who was arguably closest to Tyquan, and ironically, the one most opposed to the creation of Tyquan World. Yet, paradoxically, had she still been alive, she likely would have ended up leading the set. Of course, I'm talking about Ki. What's important to understand is that Ki's assassination marked a turning point. After her death, everything started to solidify. Tyquan World transitioned from being a loose affiliation tied to Jaro City into a more defined group, one that now had members claiming only Tyquan World, rather than being a branch of Jaro or STL/EBT. It was at this point that the new generation, TB, LC, Dwayne, Bubba, D-Money, Moog, and others, began to step up. These were the same shorties that Ki and other older STL/Jaro City had once mentored. Now, they were putting in work under the Tyquan World name and carving out an identity of their own, separate from the sets that birthed them. Not long after the deaths of both Wenzel and Ki, members of the newly forming Tyquan World began getting active in the streets. They started playing with guns and jumping off the porch fast. In many ways, they didn't have a choice. Older members from surrounding sets still looked at them as goofies, not to be taken seriously. Some of the more seasoned and active gang members would even bully or pressure them, which only pushed the younger Tyquan World members to prove themselves. If they wanted respect, they had to earn it, and in the streets of Chicago, that meant getting active, putting in work, and showing they weren't just little kids writing off Tyquan's name. TB from Tyquan World was actually the first member from the set to catch a body. His first, and also Tyquan World's first, was none other than Capo from Front Street. What makes this whole situation even more tragic is that TB and Capo were childhood friends. They had known each other for over 10 years, growing up side by side, playing together as kids, and even eating at each other's houses. Even as they got older and ended up on opposite sides, they still stayed in touch. The bond they shared was strong enough that the gang politics didn't completely sever their connection, at least not at first. But everything changed after the murder of Big V, who was killed in a shooting involving members from Front Street. A few months after Big V's death, Capo started mocking him, posting about him and showing clear disrespect. That's when the fallout between Capo and TB really began. Then it got worse. Capo didn't stop at mocking Big V, he also disrespected TB's cousin, Lil Mo, after he was killed. That hit TB hard. After everything they had been through, after all those years of friendship, Capo couldn't even hold back from mocking his dead cousin. That was the moment the friendship truly ended. From that point on, according to people close to the situation, TB made up his mind. Capo wasn't a friend anymore, he was an op, and a loud one at that. TB allegedly started plotting on Capo, and not long after, he caught up with him and ended his life. It all went down on April 20th, 2015. For TB, this hit was personal and easy. He already knew how Capo moved in the streets, his routines, where he liked to hang out. That day, Tyquan World was riding through, circling around King Drive, when they spotted their target in the 6000 block of South King Drive. According to rumors, TB jumped out, crept up, and emptied 6 shots into Capo's back before hopping back into the car. No words, no warning, just straight action. They sped off from the scene before anyone could react. Capo, who was just 18 years old and whose real name was Marshawn Fleming Jr., was rushed to Strawger Hospital in critical condition. Despite efforts to save him, he was later pronounced dead. This murder wasn't just another statistic, it marked a serious turning point for Tyquan World and for DB, who had now officially made his name known in the streets. This was one of the coldest and most heartless moves ever made in the Chicago drill scene, DB allegedly killing his own childhood friend. What made it even more tragic and disturbing is what happened after. Just one day after Capo's murder, DB posted a photo of them together on Twitter with the caption, "Everybody knew that you were my brother." On another account, he posted a second photo with the words, "Show respect to my browski." Whether this was some kind of twisted tribute or a way to mock the situation is still up for debate, but it was undeniably chilling. Some would call this sociopathic, psychopathic, or just deeply tragic. 2 days after the hit, another Tyquan World member tweeted, "Biko in the cut like tutu, better watch your back," further fueling the disrespect and tension. As many of you know, DB was also rapping, and in the track Sacked Up with Poppy and Richie Jerk, he seemingly referenced Capo's murder with the bar, "Caught his first body, threw up in a sink." That line hit differently, especially since DB tweeted the day after the murder saying he felt like throwing up and that his mind was broken. Now, a lot of people wonder, how did the internet even find out DB was allegedly the killer? The answer is simple. DB used to DM a fan on Twitter, talking about the bodies he claimed. One of the most well-known screenshots left from those DMs shows DB sending a fan Capo's Instagram page, basically implying he was the one behind the hit. Whether DB was trying to brag, boost his reputation, or just wanted the fan to leak it to YouTube, we may never know. But either way, that moment opened the floodgates and is the reason why people know about this and his other alleged bodies to this day. After the murder of his childhood friend Capo, the streets went quiet, at least on the surface. While there were no major killings right away, Tyquan World and their rivals kept trading shots, with both sides spinning each other's blocks regularly. In 2015, DB and Bubba emerged as Tyquan World's most active hitters, with some sources saying they shot up 600 in a block almost every week. The two were extremely tight during this time, moving like a unit. Even though no confirmed bodies dropped after Capo that year, Tyquan World still put in serious work, wounding several members from 600, O Block, and Front Street. One major incident happened in March 2015, when Joy from O Block was shot in the head by LC from Tyquan World. The bullet passed through Joy's right eye, leaving him permanently blind, though he survived. After that, LC earned the nickname LC Leave Him Blind from his set. Things began heating up near the end of 2015. In September, Lil Bubba was rumored to have spotted Bite Down from 600 riding his bike and shot him 2 or 3 times. Bite Down survived and later spun back, allegedly shooting up a car full of Tyquan World members. By December, the violence escalated. Lil Twan from Tyquan World allegedly shot both Michi and Quano from Front Street in a block. Both survived their injuries, but it was clear that Tyquan World was growing bolder and more dangerous. Then came 2016, a year that would make 2015 look tame in comparison. Tyquan World began solidifying itself as a serious threat, and even O Block started taking them more seriously. Still, at that point, most of the older, more seasoned members of O Block, like D-Roy, Edog, BJ, Duke, and Gleesh, focused more on long-standing enemies like Jaro City and STL/EBT. The younger O Block members, like DQ, Muwap, and Cheno, were the ones mainly tasked with handling Tyquan World. But that would all start to change. After 2016, Tyquan World wasn't just a problem for the youngins anymore. "2016 was the year Tyquan World, STL/EBT, and Gyro City gave a block, Front Street, and 600 Absolute Hell, payback for KI's murder and the constant mocking of Tyquan. Of the three, Tyquan World, especially DB, turned up the most, with DB allegedly catching 3 bodies that year, quickly becoming one of the most feared members. One major incident happened on June 17, 2016, when TB allegedly caught his second body, this time targeting Nico Gang, a set they didn't take seriously because it was full of shorties. Still, after reports that Nico Gang had shot at TW members earlier that year, TB and Lil Daryl from Gyro City reportedly decided to slide. That night, they allegedly spotted 16-year-old Melvo sitting in a car in an alley on South Hamilton Avenue. After asking where he was from and Melvo replying, "I'm not about that," TB and Lil Daryl allegedly opened fire, shooting him in the head. Melvo died at the scene, while his friend escaped unharmed. Neither TB nor Lil Daryl were arrested. Cheno, BJ's younger brother from a block, was killed on July 17, 2016, while walking with his girlfriend on 57th and Union, an area linked to No Love City. A car pulled up, a brief conversation took place, and Cheno was shot multiple times and died shortly after. 2 main theories surround his death. The first claims Tyquan World was behind it, specifically DB, Poppy, and Can't Get Right, after No Love City allegedly gave them the drop. DB reportedly had a personal issue with Cheno, and after the murder, some O Block members mocked Poppy when he was killed, possibly hinting at revenge. However, some argued Cheno would have recognized them and run, which casts doubt on this version. The second theory points to No Love City itself, with Zoe and Juju said to be the shooters. Cheno's ex even named Zoe publicly, and NLC's Zoe was later charged in a separate double homicide. Some tweets from A Block members after Cheno's death seem to support this, but others argue NLC and O Block weren't true enemies. Most likely, NLC gave the location, and Tyquan World, driven by TB's personal vendetta, carried out the hit. Shortly after, Cheno Gang formed in Cheno's memory on 57th and Low, and King Von later referred to the area as Cool, suggesting ties remained. By 2017, the feud between O Block and Tyquan World hit its peak. That year, DB allegedly killed T-Roy, one of O Block's most feared and respected members and King Von's best friend. The two had been aware of each other. DB was gaining notoriety as a rising Tyquan World rapper, and T-Roy was actively hunting him down. On Valentine's Day, T-Roy was reportedly searching for TB in Paxtown when STL's Brick spotted him and gave TB the drop. DB, along with Can't Get Right and 2 Times, tracked him down, waited until T-Roy entered a store, and then TB shot him in the chest. This murder triggered Get Back Gang's rise, a group of O Block and 600 members determined to avenge T-Roy. They immediately retaliated, hitting targets from STL, Gyro, and Tyquan World. DB, seen as the main suspect in T-Roy's murder, didn't hide, he hinted at it in songs and tweets. But revenge came fast. Just months later, DB's close friend Poppy was killed by HK and Duke. DB was devastated. On September 26, 2017, DB was with side from Jaro in Paxtown when OB600 got a tip on his location. HK, Mikado, and Gleish pulled up. HK shot DB in the head, and Mikado shot Side. DB died at 21. Side survived the headshot but was killed 2 years later. DB's death confirmed what many already suspected: he was D-Roy's alleged killer. O-Block members celebrated online, calling him Mr. D-Roy Slayer. Get Back Gang kept up the pressure, dropping multiple members from their rival sets in the months that followed. However, you already know that story. Since the Get Back Gang story is well known, we'll skip it and pick up at the end of 2019, when Melly from 051 was killed. This event shook up the gang landscape, bringing new enemies to Tyquan world in the form of Melly Way. On September 1st, 2019, Melly was killed at a house party in Jaro City's territory on South St. Lawrence. Weeks earlier, Melly and Nate from Tyquan world had a dispute that ended with Melly shooting up Nate's house while Nate's girlfriend and newborn were inside. Nate arrived at the party hours before the shooting and saw Melly standing in the corner, fueling his anger. Nate pretended to leave but then turned back and shot Melly multiple times, also injuring a 34-year-old woman in the foot. Melly was hit in the chest, abdomen, and groin. Nate escaped out the back. 051 quickly figured out Nate was the shooter. Several people at the party saw him leave. Tensions soon flared between 051, STL, Jaro, and Tyquan World. Tyquan World became enemies with 051 after discovering Nate's involvement and seeing their members mock Yarmal online. After Duck's murder, low-key beef grew between STL and 051 since STL is close to Tyquan World. They exchanged sneak disses. 051 mocked Duck. STL fired back at Melly, but neither group was involved in the other's murder, so real conflict never erupted. A few months after Melly's death, Melly Way formed an alliance of 051, Geo Drive, and 757. Melly Way killed Richie Jerk from Tyquan World. That makes the score between Tyquan World and 051 tied at 1 each. In May 2021, Tyquan World lost another key member, D-Money. He was one of the witnesses in D. Rose's case, allegedly snitching at just 13 years old after witnessing Big V's murder in 2014, which contributed to D. Rose's current prison sentence. D-Money was reportedly killed while walking his dog in the 1300 block of East Marquette in the Woodlawn neighborhood. The alleged shooters were Dello, Lil Mike, and Mon from O Block. D-Money was believed to have 3 bodies, including the killing of an innocent man named Armand inside Parkway Gardens, which was caught on camera. He allegedly committed that hit with Lil Tay, another deceased TW member. His murder was also seen as payback for the killing of Jado from a block in February 2020. Lil Bubba from Tyquan World was one of the suspected shooters in that case. In September 2022, Tyquan World lost another key member, LC, known as Leave 'Em Blind, who was killed while riding a scooter, allegedly by members of East End/TTD. Just 2 months later, in November 2022, TW lost Lil Tay, also known as Lil Empty, one of their most active members with several bodies to his name. He was allegedly involved in the murders of Lil Mike from 800/Frank Block in 2021 and Ty from a block in 2022. Lil Tay's death was a major blow for Tyquan World, and the crew never fully recovered after losing him. In the summer of 2024, Tyquan World lost another member, Vontae, who was allegedly killed by J4 from a block/DSG. Then, on February 2, 2025, Malo from Marcus Way/Tyquan World was shot and killed during an argument inside a home on the 10,600 block of S. Walden Parkway around 6:11 a.m. According to police, Malo, real name Jamal Vaughn, age 20, was shot multiple times and later died at the hospital. His brother, Lil G from Gusto Gang, was present during the incident and called the police but didn't name the shooter. 3 days later, Lil G was arrested along with GG Main and is now facing charges of aggravated unlawful possession of a weapon, possession of a controlled substance, and misdemeanor assault. It's unclear if the arrest is connected to Malo's death, but it's possible authorities were keeping an eye on him in case he tried to retaliate.
Yeah, I say this coming from his little brother on Jerk. Laugh now, cry later on tape.
Tyquan World remains active today. Alongside Gusto Gang and Marcus Way, there's still a presence in the streets, and some even believe they were involved in the murders of Monaduke and Youngin, though that remains unconfirmed. While TW's influence has faded compared to its peak, the gang has a history of bouncing back. Despite losing many key members over the years, they've never disappeared entirely. Tyquan World continues to stand as one of Chicago's most infamous and resilient gangs. That wraps up this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Stay safe, and may God bless you all. Hosanna in excelsis.